What's up, guys? Tim Halstead here. Welcome back for episode 11 now of doing some actual work other than just talking about it. I've probably said it a million times, you know, this is the car that Calvert used to make the monoleaf for 69 Mustangs and Cougars, or whatever they fit that year. That was back in '98. He sent me leaf spring parts through the mail. I mocked it up, told him what we needed to change. Then he took the measurements, made up a leaf spring for it, sent it back to me, and that's the same spring that's been in there since '98 when he made the model leaf. So pretty happy that he picked me to make the prototype, I guess. And I don't know how it worked out. It's one of those things that just works out. Sometimes you get lucky meeting people. But I think it's time to change. I think the spring's bent from doing a bad wheel stand. So I think it's going to be beneficial to get that out of there and put a new spring in there. The same rate, if I can keep it, because I like the way the car has for a stance. So what we'll do is we'll take this apart. I'll show you how I take things apart. Might be of interest to you. A lot of this might be just basics to other guys, you know, depending on your level. But at least I can give you an insight on how I put things together so I can get the best out of my combination in regards to traction. Makes a big difference, that 60 foot. If you can lay the rubber down and do a good 60 foot time, you'll see it on the big end. So sometimes people just overlook that aspect. They just want to see horsepower numbers, which don't mean much if you can't keep it on the pavement. We'll go over what I do for adjustments, maybe something that you're interested in. I have another video I made on CalTrax, which got a lot of talk on that and comments, a lot of views, like 9,000 plus, so that's pretty cool. We'll see about taking the spring out, show you how easy it is, do it the right way and the safe way, and then I'll send it to Travis at Calvert's, see if we can match it up, or just go by a number, but I know there's no number on it. It's just too old. Hi, Iz. I'm making a video. You want to say hi?
Hi.
This is Izzy. She came in to say hi. What are you doing?
Playing with the chickens.
You are? Are they being good?
Kind of.
All right. Cool.
Daddy, I made Poopy like me.
Oh, good. All right, let me finish this and we'll be done. Elena, what are you doing? All right, we'll get going and doing something. But I appreciate you turning in. Now here we are. We'll see. The next thing will be taking off the leaf spring. So you can kind of follow along and do what you want in regards to how much you want to watch, what's applicable to you. I'll give you my insight on how I set things up. Get the best 60-foot time out of my combination. That makes all the difference in the world. It's not rocket science, like I always say. It's just a matter of trial and error and doing the right things at the right time and putting it all together in the right combination. And it takes practice to get there. But the shocks themselves that I had Calvert shocks on there, I got a 127 60 foot out of those shocks. They were the old Rancho 3-way adjustable from 20 years ago. And I got a set of double adjustables in there, Mark Mentzer's now. It makes a big difference when you can adjust both rebound and compression, and that's how you get that tire to be planted into the surface, you know, and how long you're going to hold it there. Those are important things to think about when you're trying to work at the 60 foot. So I said before, I run a radial tire. Hoosier radial. They're worth a tenth off the 60 foot right there, which is 2 on the big end. They make a big difference. It's just a matter of getting them to hook up right. A lot of guys are running them. They're cool. So let's see. Here's the next step. So the first thing I do is I loosen up. We take the CalTrax bars off. I got a couple wrenches here. You can see them. I had a good buddy make these. Anesthesiologist Greg Vrabel. I've been using these for years. Calvert never had anything when I got this set up. And then he finally made some, which was a nice investment. So I loosen them up. In my case, I haven't tightened a turn. And that's something that you got to figure out on your own. You know, they say the hardest hit is when these stops that are up here that are just touching the spring, because that rear end's going to move, whatever that is, that air gap, and that's going to give you a harder hit than if you already had preload on there. The preload couldn't be one flat of a turn, it could be a whole turn. You're not going to get much more tightening this more than one turn. It doesn't do any better to tighten it up. Then you have your adjustment hole, which is here, the lower one and the upper one. I use the lower one because in this car, the power that it makes, for it to get the best traction, I need to have it on the lower hole so it doesn't hit as hard. So that's something to think about when you're adjusting your own Cal tracks. Like I said, this little gun here, it's indispensable. Now with these, I have mine somewhat loose. They're tight, but so they can move back and forth. You want these shackles loose and moving back and forth. That's obviously too loose. But that's how you get these things to work. So you want to make sure you're not over tightening them. If you tighten up this mounting bracket too tight, then that heim joint can't pivot. And that's going to affect the way this thing launches. Any car launches. It's going to restrict the movement. So that's something to think about. I'm pretty bad about not changing these lock nuts every time I use them. But I do mark them with a red paint marker so I know if they're moving. And I try to look through the suspension on this car at least every time before I go on a race. So I like to keep everything together. Again, organization is the key. I can remember one time when I was racing in Columbus, I was using the same rod that John made for the car when he sent me the original leaf spring. He sent me these bars. He actually didn't charge me anything, if I remember correctly. And I had stripped one of these threads. I think it was like on a Friday test and tune or something. I don't know, but Travis ended up, I almost want to say he overnighted me because I remember fixing the car. Maybe I rethreaded it, I don't know. But he sent me another pair of bars to hook me up and made them a little bit longer. So I have more thread inside the barrel here. So that's another thing to consider when you're putting things together. Make sure you got enough thread in regards to being secured in a nut or some type of fastener. You don't want it jiggling out, and you don't want it snapping off because it's not in far enough or tight enough. But here's the situation. We've got that part off. Obviously, this part comes off after I have the spring hanging. Then I can loosen up the mounting bracket here with the load off it. Right now, the load is sitting on it with it. Jack stands underneath the rear end. So it's like sitting on the ground. You don't want to take this part off with its weight on it. Kaboo. So I'll give you another little bit of a view of the Del Loom bushings.